Hey everybody, this is Mike Petralia, Trags. I'm joined by Skinny, Richard Skinner of Local 12, and this is the JungleRoar Skinny Bengals Postgame pod from MetLife Stadium following a 17-7 desperately needed Bengals victory over the New York Football Giants on Sunday Night TV. Nothing like national exposure and primetime TV to bring out the best in the Cincinnati Bengals. I kid.
Yes, you do.
It was not the best. It was not even pretty. I wondered at halftime what the network executives were thinking, Skinny, putting this particular game on. But hey, it's Joe Burrow in the nation's #1 media market on a Sunday night in the middle of October, and I guess I get that. But who knew that the Bengals were going to be 1-4 and the Giants were going to be 2-3 heading into this game? Look, style points don't matter much. They don't matter at all because the Bengals were able to win a game that gets them at least some momentum going into Cleveland next week. What were your biggest takeaways from the 17-7 win over the Giants Sunday night?
Yeah, listen, the defense played a lot better. There's no question about that part. But for me, it was a baby step forward against a bad offense, and that's all well and good. But I think they had to have something to hang their hat on, and I think they do now.
Yeah, I think that is exactly the case. And to me, my biggest takeaway after the game, and I asked Zach Taylor this to start off the press conference, this was a gritty game. There was nothing pretty about it. Anybody who watched it, whether you were here in the press box, whether you were in the stands at MetLife Stadium, or whether you were back in Cincinnati watching it with a group of friends on TV, it was ugly. But to me, to win a game when Joe Burrow, who after the game admitted he had no rhythm, especially in the first half, to win a game like that on the road in a hostile environment against a team that really thought if they win the game, they're 500, they're 3-3, and maybe they have a season to play for going forward. That says something that you're able to win a game when Joe Burrow is your leading rusher and he throws for barely over 200 yards.
Well, it at least means you have a pulse, and I think that's all you wanted after a game like that is to keep the season beating. And there's probably no other takeaway than that. Again, I thought the defense played better. Having Sheldon Rankins with B.J. Hill, I think was a good thing. It opens things for Trey Hendrickson, who had a couple of sacks, probably because Sheldon Rankins was alongside of him. And Joe made enough play. But the bottom line is, you had to get a win to keep having a pulse for this season. And that's what this did. To your point, there were no style points. There was nothing other than you hang it in the W column and you look and go, okay, having at least a full complement of defensive linemen has to help moving forward.
No question. And Zach Taylor made reference to that after the game at B.J. Hill. You and me were there in the scrum around B.J. Hill's locker. It was a special moment, I think, for B.J. Hill coming back to the organization that gave him, as he pointed out, his first chance in the National Football League, spent his first 3 seasons in the NFL with the New York Giants before obviously being traded for Billy Price over to the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2021 season. It was a big moment for him coming back to New York, and he admitted he was nervous early on, but then once he settled into the game, I thought he was a force.
Yeah, and that's what you were hoping when you have your full complement is it's a trickle down effect, right? You got Hill and Rankins working in tandem. You got Rankins and Hendrickson working in tandem, and you get one guy making a play, maybe a guy taking a gap, whatever it is. I think it all trickles down, and you saw that. And then you did have guys make plays like DJ Hill. I mean, he forced the interception. He had another ball that we all thought tipped, and he said hit him right in the face, actually. But he was there to get in the face, and that worked out fine.
Yeah, and when you take a look, I think when we look back at the film on Monday, and we break down the game and where the game turned in certain areas, I thought stopping the Giants on their first drive of the second half was very clutch. And when the Giants decide, because they couldn't move the ball, to go for it on 4th down, and they managed, and the Bengals managed to stop them on that 4th and 2. I think we all took a breath and went, they're actually snapping the ball here and going for it. And the Bengals were able to get a good defensive play on the outside, and that was a harbinger, a good harbinger, as it turned out, for the Bengals defense of things to come. Yes, on the next drive, the Bengals got the ball at the 38-yard line, and what happens? Zach Moss fumbles the ball away, and the Giants get the ball back. They come down the field. They eventually tie the game 7-7. And on that drive, they actually did go for fourth down, not once, but twice, and converted both, and eventually punched it in for a touchdown. But let's fast forward while we're on the subject to the biggest defensive play of the game. The Giants have fourth and short, and they are driving for what would be a go-ahead touchdown in this game. And DJ Turner steps up and knocks the ball away. Your thoughts on what you saw from that play, and how DJ Turner, I think, Skinny, his ability to step forward in his first start since Dax Hill tore his ACL, I think that was a significant moment for him tonight.
And he obviously gave them good snaps against Carolina, right? And so I think that was important. The one thing for me is the redemption part of that, because he got called for the interference that set up that lone touchdown, and it was interference. He didn't think he interfered. He said to me, he goes, I didn't like the call. Well, I think you did interfere, my guy. But to bounce back and come up with that fourth down stop shows a lot of fortitude for that guy. And going back to that earlier fourth down miss and then the fumble, and I said it at the time, Mike, I said, this is what losing teams do.
Yep.
Losing teams don't make fourth down, and losing teams then don't take advantage of them not making the first down by fumbling. And that was a key turning point for me, because it could have really turned that game ugly.
It could have, but I just thought the way the Bengals stuck together on defense, and clearly Burrow was not having his best game. But let's turn to the offensive side of the ball, Skinny, and what Joe Burrow was able to do late in this game. He takes a violent hit from Brian Burns. He gets his head smashed against the ground, the back of his helmet. Anybody who saw it on TV or saw the replay in the press box, we could see it very clearly, and we can understand why, and I made this point in the press box, why the officials, the NFL officials from the replay booth or whoever is responsible, called down to the Cincinnati bench, because Joe Burrow told us after the game he didn't think anything was wrong at all. But obviously they wanted him checked immediately for a concussion. So Burrow goes to the blue tent. He doesn't miss a series, even though Jake Browning was warming up on the sideline. And Burrow comes in the game, and they're facing third and long. And I want to bring it up, make sure I have it right here. They have 3rd and 12 at the Bengals' 34-yard line. And Burrow throws on the run a dart to Andre Iosivas for 29 yards to the Giant 37-yard line. Burrow could have been dog poop the entire game. And for him, coming off a hard hit from Burns and slamming his head on the ground, to be able to come forward, make a pass when he needed to make a pass on 3rd and 12 was just remarkable.
Yeah, it was. And what a catch by Iosivas, too, because it was right along the sidelines. He had to make sure he kept his feet in, which he did. And I thought that was a great play by both. It was a scramble play situation, and they both kind of read the situation properly. And that was a big first down, because it kind of put you in clinch mode, and they eventually do clinch it with the Chase Brown touchdown.
How about Joe Burrow, the underrated athlete?
Wow.
The 47-yard career-long ramble down the right sideline. And let's set this up a little bit. It was a touchdown, obviously. He beat the safety in the corner to the pylon and dove in for the touchdown that made it 7-0 in the first quarter, and I think gave the Bengals the ability to take a breath at the start of this game. But for Joe Burrow to have two pass plays called, and neither one of them panned out, and he said, screw it, I'm just going to take off with the ball. And Zach Taylor told us after the game that is just great instinctive playmaking by our star quarterback.
The thing that's so weird to watch was how many people went to one side of the field.
Right.
And if you see the end zone picture of the tweet that was tweeted out, the safety that was on the hash that Joe ran to, as Joe starts running, strangely, he runs the other way. And that's the guy that had to try to play catch up and then tackle Joe.
I believe it was
Pinnock. Yeah, it was. But Joe ran almost 20 miles an hour on that play. Don't tell me he's not an athlete. Don't forget, he was a pretty good youth baseball player. He was a damn good youth high school AAU basketball player.
Yep.
And obviously, we know what he is as a football.
Yeah, and I just thought, Joe had some fun with us after the game talking about his ability to make plays like that, and it's underrated to this day. I think, Joe Burrow doesn't get to talk about his athleticism, but dang, he can really run when he absolutely needs to, and the Bengals needed him. Go ahead, Skinny.
Remember how cocky he was, too, with his answer where he even said, he wasn't going to catch me. About 2 more yards, he would have caught you, my guy.
Yes, he would have caught. And if he were so confident that he wasn't going to be caught, he wouldn't be diving for the pylon the way he did, of course. But let's let Joe Burrow have his moment.
Sure.
Because I thought Joe Burrow tonight showed a lot of maturity and leadership in a really, we keep coming back to this, Skinny, an ugly game where he said that was one of my few good plays of the night, that running play where he took off and scrambled for the touchdown. He was self-effacing. He was very humble after the game. He knew that he has to play better going forward. He also knew he was up against a very difficult defense. And he also pointed out, we're not going to score 30 points every single game. And there has to be other ways we find, we get resourceful and find a way to come away with a road victory. And that, to me, more than anything, was Burrow's message to not only us, but to his own teammates after the game.
Yeah, I thought one of the interesting things he said was he got affected by the pass rush more than he would have liked. Like, I think unofficially he had 16 pressures. He got hit around. It's a really good defensive front. I know people
even without Kayvon Thibodeau.
Even without Kayvon Thibodeau. I know people are going to point to the Bengals' offensive line sucks like it always sucks. I mean, that was a good defensive line.
Yeah.
And to the point of what Joe said, that's the human nature of this, right? You get banged around a little bit, and that's the first thing you're thinking about rather than making the right read, the right progression, when to take off, when to hold it, how quickly to get rid of the ball. And I think that was a very introspective thing he said where, hey, the pass rush did affect me. I don't think you're going to have a lot of games. You're going to have some, but not like that. I think that's more of a tip of the cap to the Giants. They really do a great job rushing the passer.
We haven't had a chance, Skinny, to talk about the players-only meeting that was held this week after what happened last week with the Ravens and a lot of the frustration that took place after that game, and understandably so. It dropped into 1-4. The Ravens are clearly in the process of running off and hiding from the AFC North. The Steelers did win today, but Burrow doesn't want this season getting away, and I think there was perhaps from his point of view too much reliance on, the coaches have to figure out a way to scheme us up and get the job done and put us in position to win. And Burrow was like, no, damn it. We've got to find a way to be tougher on the field and sack up, if you will, to coin an expression, and find a way to win. And that's what I think tonight's game was all about.
Yeah, and I know the mantra to this is the Giants' offense sucks, and they didn't have Malik Neighbors and all that, and that's fine. It's true. You're not wrong. But
you're playing the team you're playing. You don't worry about who's not playing or who may be not at full strength and still playing. You don't worry about that. You worry about you and the team you're going up against, and the team you're going up against made it very difficult for you to score Sunday night.
And when you're 1-4, you just need to find a way to win. Now, would a performance like tonight beat the Chiefs? Probably not. Definitely not. Would it beat Baltimore? Definitely not. But I can also tell you this. I watched this Bengals team with defensive struggles play toe-to-toe with both of those teams. So do you want to lose aesthetically pleasing, or do you want to win ugly on occasion? Sometimes you got to win ugly in this league.
Oh, they absolutely needed to win the game by hook or by crook. They needed to get the marker in the win column, no doubt about that. Did you sense in the locker room after the game sort of a sense of relief from the defense that, hey, this is finally what we're supposed to look like?
And I think some of it, there's a little truth to that. There's no Dax Hill, so that's an injury. It's a factor. But you finally had basically a starting caliber corner with DJ Turner, starting caliber corner in Cam Taylor-Britt. Mike was back at slot. The safeties we still can have some issues with, and I still think that's a work in progress. We saw Jordan Battle work in there a little bit more tonight. But I think to the point of, I think it was Jermaine Pratt that said this to a couple of us, listen, our defense starts up front, and we finally have our guys back. And I do think that makes a difference.
I think when
Mike, one more point on that. Yeah. And I don't know if it's coincidence, but Sheldon Rankins and B.J. Hill have played together 3 games. New England, they gave up 16 points. Actually, 13 because Charlie Jones fumbled. Against Kansas City, they gave up 19 points. 7 were scored on that scoop and score fumble return.
Right.
And then 7 tonight. Maybe coincidence. And, it's 2 pedestrian offenses in New England and tonight. But it's also Kansas City that only gave up 19 points to. So I think there's some truth to that.
Well, you could call this offense that they played here on Sunday night in New York pedestrian. They also went to Seattle and scored 29 points and beat
without Malik Neighbors. And
beat the Seahawks pretty much like a drum, 29-20. So, there are reasons for the Bengals to stick their chest out a little bit after this game, and they should. I mean, you're not going to win games in this league running around with your tail between your legs saying we suck. That's not going to work. And if the Bengals, need a win, an ugly win like this to get some of their swagger back, then so be it. The real issue is at 2-4, and it was this way obviously even more so at 1-4. You got to be able to string consistent performances together, Skinny, and that's where I wonder. People have brought up the 2022 analogy. The metaphor to that season and what the Bengals were able to, do and running off 10 straight wins. Is this team capable of doing that? I think before we even begin to approach that conversation, how about 2 wins in a row? How about 3 wins in a row?
Right.
Just leave it at that.
No, I'm with you. But you are at a spot where you're capable of doing that. You have a Cleveland team that's got the quarterback that is just a mess, and they're a mess. Philly still has some issues. They didn't play exactly great in beating Cleveland today. Then you have the Raiders, and they're god-awful coming to your place. And then we'll see where we're at after that. I mean, you have a chance 5-4 going to Baltimore. Let's see what this team's all about at that point. But to your point, right. String a second straight win together, then let's talk.
Hey, can we take a look at some of the numbers here, Skinny?
Sure.
Joe Burrow, 19 of 28, 208 yards. He was sacked 4 times. He was hit I think twice as many as that. I think he was hit 8 times. And he had a quarterback passer rating of 89.6. I don't think he has ever had 208 tougher yards passing than he had tonight.
I agree. Even if you look at the 2 biggest plays, the Jamar Chase looked like he just did one of those Jamar's down there somewhere throws.
Yes.
And
it was
then
a
the
playground.
One was a scramble play. That's 62 of the yards on those 2 plays alone. I will say he had some good balls to T. Higgins that made some great catches. Not great catches, but just tough catches, strong-handed catches.
To me,
I thought he was really big.
Burrow's second best pass. I think his best pass of the night was to Yosef-Ash, considering the circumstance and where he put it, and Yosef-Ash helping him out with a great catch. But his second best pass was over the middle to T. Higgins in a spot. And we talked about this last week, Skinny. Burrow has the ability to put the ball, especially when it involves T. Higgins, in a spot where only T can catch it and doesn't lead him into a huge hit. Yes, T was hit over the middle on the ball I'm talking about, but it was still a remarkable pass.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes, a pass looks ugly, but it wasn't the one from last week where he threw it behind T in the end zone, because that was the only window that he had to throw it without it getting intercepted by the linebacker. It looks like an ugly pass because it's behind the guy, but it was the right place to put it. Same thing with T. He put it in a spot where only T can get it, and then T's got to show strong hands, strong physicality, and he did that.
Hey, before we forget, and we're coming up to the end of this podcast, I want to give props to the bounce back player of the week.
I'm with you.
Rico.
Yes.
Ryan Rico, 6 punts on Sunday night, 46.3 gross average. The net average, 42.8. 4 of those 6, Skinny, were inside the 20 with 5 seconds or more of hang time. That's exceptional.
And that's what's funny about raw numbers, right? Because 46.2 gross, 42.8 net. Evan Huber did that late in his career. But a lot of those punts were inside Giants territory, and he was trying to get him pinned, to your point. I mean, 4 of them that he pinned him on. And then when he had to hit bombs, he had his first one for 55 with a net, or 55 with a net of 55.
Right.
He hit one 39 yards, and that was what the situation called for. Then he hits another 55-yarder with a return of 1 yard. So when he had to bomb it, he bombed it, hit high enough for coverage, and then the times he had to chip it down in there and say, hey, we're going to either cover this or you're going to catch it 10. He did that too. That was brilliant. You're right. He was great tonight.
And he got the snap down on, the go-ahead field goal, the tie-breaking field goal. And look, I mean, yeah, it was only 37 yards. I don't care. It had to have been going through his mind. And he got down the 2 extra points as well. But that had to have been going through his mind. I didn't have the chance to actually ask him about it after the game, but still, you got to feel good for a guy like that because, look, the Bengals are going to need him, especially if they play some of these games going forward that play out like this one did Sunday night here at MetLife, where it's low scoring. There isn't a great margin of difference between the two teams. You have to win field position battle. And one reason the Bengals won this game tonight is because they forced an inept offense that didn't have a couple of weapons to move the length of the field and rarely gave the Giants, a plus field to work with.
Well, I think he's a real weapon, and the more he learns about ball placement and whatnot, I think he's just going to be outstanding. I mean, when he needs to hammer one, good Lord, he can hammer one with the best of them.
What are you working on post-game here, Skinny?
Kind of a calm along your lines, Mike, of listen, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing on offense. You weren't playing a great Giants offense. But you did make some strides defensively, and this win gave you a pulse. It wasn't one of those ones where you go over the top and go, they're back. I can't tell you they're back. They can't even tell you they're back. But it does give them a pulse and allows you, to your point, stack another one. And then you look up and see where you're at that point and feel like, okay, we've at least got ourselves a chance to now make a run at the playoffs. And that's what tonight did. That's what these guys, they gave them that sense of relief. Okay, we know how to win.
Next week, it's the Cleveland Browns, again on the road, but thankfully it's not a primetime game. I know this is inside baseball stuff, but I'm done with. I mean, I know we're going to have a couple of more of these, but 8 o'clock games, 8:15 games are just brutal. So they're brutal on the players too, by the way.
For full disclosure, we're doing this coming up on 2 a.m. Eastern time. And I still have to finish a column. I know you still have to finish some work.
I do.
You're driving home. I've got a flight at 11.
But for the record, I'm just going to get this out there. For the record, I am, believe it or not, getting some sleep before I get in a car and drive 8 hours back to Cincinnati.
I'm not gonna divulge what you told us, what time you were thinking of driving. I was a little nervous about the time you said you were going to try, Mike. So I'm glad you're going to get some sleep.
And by the way, anybody want to check out James Rapine's tweet and capture the essence of what my mood can be like in an elevator immediately after a night game trying to get down for the press conference? Go ahead and check out James Rapine's tweet. It's worth the follow. It's worth
I will say, as many know, this stadium was in New Jersey. It's Rutherford, New Jersey.
Right.
I think the walk from where we got off the elevator to where the Bengals locker room and press conference was, I think we went through the Lincoln Tunnel to get there. I'm pretty sure we did.
We waited in traffic to get to the Lincoln Tunnel appropriately, Skinny.
Yes.
All right. Skinny, check out his stuff on Local12.com. He has, as always, great stuff up there. Follow him on the X, Local12 Skinny. Be sure to follow me on the X at Trags, Trags. I have plenty of locker room reaction up on Twitter, as a matter of fact. Also have plenty of locker room reaction on the JungleRoar Podcast YouTube page, youtube.com/at JungleRoarPod. And be sure to follow my stuff at CLNS Cincy with a Y.com. He is Richard Skinner. My name is Mike Petralia, Trags. The Bengals get a much-needed win at MetLife Stadium against the New York Giants in primetime, 17-7. For Skinny, I'm Mike Petralia. Thanks for watching this episode of the JungleRoar Skinny Bengals Postgame Pod.